So the topic we're talking about the media, right? Or we're talking about
Yeah.
how media represents,
Yeah.
topic of suicide, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So where do we start off? We talk about like the bad representations of it, or do you think that's a good place to start? Because we've
I mean,
talked about it before already.
yeah. I mean, I think like because it's gonna be a comparison. Like what should media like? What should people who are trying to talk about suicide strive for when they're trying to touch on that topic, since it is so sensitive? And then
Yes.
like some things that they should stray away from.
Hmm.
So we could we could really start from anywhere really. Because either way, we're still going to be talking about both sides.
Well, okay. Let's start off. What I think we should start off from is what do you think would be a good way to talk about it? Because there's different people have different ways of trying to explain suicide and trying to explain its effects, its causes in the best way possible to try not offending or making anybody like feel uncomfortable. What do you think? To me, what do you think is the best way to do it?
Well, I think the best way to the biggest thing, of course, is just don't just flat out show someone committing suicide.
Do you think there
I feel
should
like
be like a development?
um I don't know about like I feel like it shouldn't like suicide shouldn't be portrayed as, that was like the final like option kind of.
Okay.
But we could also even like search it up um
Because we found okay, because like literally one of the films that we're gonna discuss about has
mhm,
development, so I'm kind of like saying, how far are we gonna go towards not showing it? Because there could be a way to show it, but have the audience kind of understand why. But then I
mhm.
guess I know what you mean. Like there should be a resolution, like why you shouldn't do it. So yeah, there should be reasoning as to why. I believe. I understand. Like it shouldn't be something that should be shown straight up. I guess.
Mhm.
Maybe again have the viewer understand the situation much more clearly before showing it, I guess, or altogether avoiding it if possible.
Yeah. I feel like an appropriate thing to take into consideration would probably be, you know, like outlining maybe the person's like mental state and emotional state, but also outlining like how like how they think, and then how there would always be other options other than like suicide.
Hmm.
Um Let me see, because I'm like trying to search some stuff on it right now, see what I can find, see what other people are saying. Um,
Or maybe make it I wouldn't say much obvious, but make it in a sense where the audience understands that it's happening or they're about to do something very bad. Like you know what I mean? Kind of like I wouldn't say like a silhouette, but more of a you get the inference that something bad is going to happen, but it
mhm,
doesn't show it like straight up or doesn't encourage it. Because a lot of I feel like it would be more of they try to show it in front of your face instead of like inferring or just suggesting to the audience that that person's gonna commit suicide.
probably the first thing we can probably start off on is like instead of what would be appropriate, we should look at what shouldn't be. Like what isn't appropriate. So I feel like a good place to start would probably be looking at, what were the main things that people complained about when 13 Reasons Why first came out. So let's see. Because I know there's a big conversation about that, and once we get into that and have an understanding of okay, what's wrong here, we can start coming to the conclusion of okay, what should be done instead.
Someone says on this Reddit post, I'm a strong believer in the ability to express your artistic expression, and this applies to a lot of things that society might find harmful, though. But I believe that artistic expression should never be silenced no matter what, unless it is inherently detrimental to someone's health.
Mm,
So basically, if it's something that could cause or have someone pull towards that mindset, I guess,
mhm,
then it shouldn't be shown.
yeah. Okay, so I found something from Psychology Today. They gave 13 reasons why 13 reasons why isn't getting it right, at least when it comes to suicide prevention. So, like, the first thing they said was like it focuses on a narrow narrative that implies that bullying leads to suicide, when in reality, not no one thing can lead to suicide. Um, and how many people who experience bullying, um, or even like sexual assault that they showed in the show,
Hmm.
um, or whatever challenging experiences that the main character who did commit suicide faced, do not go on to attempt suicide. Um, Number two, um, it offers very little insight into the psychology of suicide. Um,
Yeah, according to this one post on the same subreddit, it says that they didn't show clear. I didn't watch the show, but it says they didn't show clear signs of depression, PTSD, or mental illness.
no, yeah, they really didn't.
And
It was
if
the main things that pushed her to it were physical or like bullying.
and apparently, again, I haven't watched it, but apparently, it also says that they romanticized committing suicide. I don't know if that is true, but
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, so maybe. Number three. Okay, so the way they portrayed it was suicide was like the person committing suicide. It was kind of like an fu to all the people that they left behind.
hmm
Um, like using it as like the way that she did it. She made tapes to make everyone who wronged her feel bad. It's fuck you, you caused this.
hmm
Um, yeah. So the thing was like suicide does not exact revenge. Um, okay, so I think this is what you were talking about. There's this person is like Ijeoma Oluo described the series as quote unquote the ultimate fantasy of teen suicidal ideation.
Do you want to send that link?
Yeah.
So you feel like it's romanticized. You feel like that is like it's very much more of something that it's okay to do, or it's not as bad as people say it is.
Yeah, you could probably say that. Um,
Okay, yeah, this is exactly what I said. I mean, what I was about to mention. There's like no payoff. There's no lesson. Would you say?
yeah. There's really no lesson to it. It's kind of just like,
It's kind of like, oh, it happened. Deal with it, or it kind of just happened. This is it. I feel like that's very abrupt.
I feel like the main thing that they were trying to do here was like be careful how you treat other people
Mhm.
because you never know what they're gonna do. But the way that they told that message wasn't really well done.
It wasn't effective.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, it's like on number 5. It's like the main thing that people are remembering is how cruel teenagers can be. Um. Yeah, and it's like the show doesn't really send a message of hope or empowerment. Um.
So yeah, number 6, it just says that it doesn't show what people can do to
Yeah,
prevent
pretty
it.
much everyone was just like standing around, and it was like a blaming game. It was.
That's not a way to do it. At least
Mhm.
again, there should be some sort of resolution or like if you get okay, here's the thing. I believe that you should at least show like some sort of cause and effect, rather than just having the cause and not showing what happens after. Because I feel like it would be better as a lesson if you showed the cause and effect, like, oh, if so and so happens or X and Y happens, then this is going to happen. And I mean, it sounds very wrong and brutal, but I feel like that would be much more effective instead of just stopping it there. At least it gives a reason to the audience why you shouldn't do it. Like, for example, like those commercials on TV about smoking, like if you smoke, this is what's going to happen to you. It sucks, that a lot of people, including me and you, probably don't want to smoke because we know what's going to happen. And these commercials can simply end up on "don't smoke," but they show the reasons why you shouldn't smoke because it could
Yeah,
lead to lung cancer and stuff like that, or even worse. Your voice doesn't sound the same. It's harsh. It's a harsh message, and a lot of these commercials do tend to be kind of disgusting sometimes. But at least they're telling you this is what happens. It shows you what happens, and it kind of like discourages you from doing it because oh, I don't want to end up like that person.
yeah.
I don't want to get cancer.
Because I mean, nowhere in the show did they showcase someone reaching out. They never really showed someone that was like, "Oh, I'm here for you." It was people kind of just like shrugging it off and like minimalizing the person's feelings. It was the exact opposite of what you wanted to do. Um, like even when it came to the adults too, when when Hannah Baker did go to seek an adult, a counselor for everything that has been happening to her. They just kind of shrugged it off, you know?
That doesn't seem very
Yeah.
see, yeah, a lot of reviews here by the parents. I'm looking on Common Sense Media about like what parents have to say about this, and
Mm,
there are messages in this show that do need to be heard, and I understand that. But there's nothing redeeming in how it's presented. So basically, what we're saying,
mhm.
people think this is great for kids to watch. Apparently, according to this one review, it says, "I can't believe so many people think this is great for kids to watch."
I mean, the thing is like it gives new ways of thinking for like this was number 7. It gives new ways for teens to think about suicide.
Yeah, because it isn't. Because I'm looking at some of these reviews and some of these concepts, or some of the, because it's kind of explaining the plot. I don't want to watch it, but I'm kind of spoiling myself here, which is okay because I don't plan on watching this. I feel like because apparently there's like 13 tapes, right, that explain why
Yeah,
she
yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
That kind of doesn't that kind of sound like it does kind of sound like it does give kids ideas. Like that kind of sounds a bit suspicious.
But you know what the 13 tapes are like surrounded around, right?
Not well,
Each individual tape is surrounding a specific experience with a specific person, and it's pretty much like this is what this person did that was
okay,
horrible to me.
all right.
Yeah, and then like her sending those tapes to those individual people, it's kind of like you caused my death, that kind of thing.
I see.
Yeah, so it's kind of like haunting them from the grave, essentially. Um, oh, this is a really big thing too. Number 8 on this list, it's like it's very traumatizing to watch because they don't hold back. Like
They
they
go
show
beyond
her
the
do
limit. Here's another
I
thing
mean, they
that
they they show the suicide itself. They show her what she does.
okay, here's the thing. Would you think it's appropriate for anyone to see, or do you think it's appropriate for a more mature audience to see?
I mean,
Because
I feel like that's up to interpretation because it really depends on like a person's mental state and when they
okay,
watch it. Because
because
I know for me, even some of the stuff that like when I was watching it, some of the stuff was even hard for me to watch, and I had to fast forward it because it's like
because I'm looking at all these reviews right now. A lot of people are saying only people that are older than like 18. I feel like I saw some that are even going to like the extent of like, no, yeah, some people are saying like 18 plus.
it's even
It's only
hard for them to watch.
you know. Do you really think it'd be appropriate for anyone to see in the first place, regardless of
Yeah,
age?
I mean, it's like they show drug use and like the effects of that, and then they also show like how are these people getting these drugs? How are they using these drugs? They
Hmm.
show the person actually committing suicide. They show her where she cut, how she cut, and they show her sitting there as she's dying. And then they show rape and then several occurrences of it, and it's like it's hard for anyone to watch. That's the thing about it.
I feel yeah,
Um
only a specific audience should be able to watch it.
yeah. Like
But some
okay,
people
so
say it's
we're
inaccurate.
comparing it to Silent Voice, right?
Yeah, correct.
The way they portray it is, you know,
Because there's a
it's implied.
resolution.
Yeah, there's a resolution. It's implied. You don't actually see the act happening.
Well, you do, but the thing is, it is much more. I feel like again, that's why I wanted to mention development. There's a reason why she wanted to do so. There's a reason why everything happened. There's events that led
But
up
I mean,
to
it
it.
wasn't even just her though. It was even the guy. I forget his name off the top of my head, but it was even
Ishida.
the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was very like it was much more played out rather than it being like in your face. And even then, you know what was gonna happen, but it wasn't as brutal as what it appears to be
Someone
on.
slitting like their wrist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Number 9.
It talks about
That's actually very true.
it's not reflective of what most people often experience when they are thinking about suicide. It is unrealistic for someone, especially a teenager in the midst of an emotional crisis, to construct an elaborate series of tapes all the while maintaining a sarcastic, witty, and glib tone. Again, I haven't seen it, so I don't know exactly how it was done. But if that's the case, it doesn't seem realistic. Not
I
that
mean, they
it's.
show the whole process of her getting ready for it. They show her buying the materials. They show her recording the tapes. They show her
I mean,
like
I could see the concept. I could see the concept. I just don't know how that applies. I don't know what it looks like, but I could see why the concept. I could see why they went with that concept. I just don't know if it would work in this sense. Because it made it seem like it was quite detailed. Like this person that was doing it was about to commit
which portion
suicide.
was detailed. Like, are you trying to refer to?
Just like the tapes, like everything, like because it says that. What I'm trying to say is like how it was like they planned it out meticulously. Like, they got
Oh
the
yeah,
tapes and
it
everything.
was. It was.
Like I
Like
feel like
literally the show is 13 episodes, so each episode is an hour long and is about one tape each.
I feel like okay,
It's like whole different stories of like
I could see that concept
her
working
interactions with other people.
because okay, I can see that. I kind of understand the concept that they were going for because it's like, yeah, we get to integrate the each tape as an episode, and that's appropriate. I can see that, but I just don't know if that'd be realistic. At least for this kind of because it
I
says
mean,
like
it's
it's
not because I feel like the main thing that's on people's mind when they like
they
revenge
try to
isn't the
hide
first.
it.
Like I feel like revenge isn't the first thing on someone's mind when they decide to commit suicide.
No, it's not. They usually it's more of they try to blame it on themselves
Yeah, exactly.
rather than them trying to blame it on someone else. Which I mean, again, everybody's built differently, so it's not like it's going to be impossible that this situation does happen. But I'm just saying. I mean, it doesn't seem right. It seems a bit too like I want to say like because obviously do people who are suicidal do tend to plan their things meticulously. However, I don't think this would be the right way to do it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, it's not.
And then number 10 talks about fear. Fear tends to shut people down, which kind of goes with the whole thing of ignorance is bliss. Kids not knowing about it tend to not think about it. So
Yeah,
that ties into the whole rom, romanticization. Is that like romanticizing? The idea of suicide. You know, oh, it's cool to do this, or it's cool to do that. It's normal. Nothing's gonna happen. Even though there's obviously going to be a long line, a domino effect, basically, of people mourning and reacting to someone doing the act because it is, you know, just because, it's going to affect a lot of people, nonetheless. It's going to affect the community. People hear about it, people are going to be sad about it. The friends of that person is going to be very upset. The family is going to be upset. It's more of a greater effect than people think, and they tend to ignore that. How about number 11? A lot of people want to be supportive because it could open up further needed conversation. Oh, there's a book.
yeah, it was based off a book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I never read the book because I don't read. But yeah,
Skip this series if your child is experiencing depression or harmful thoughts. The only person truly okay, number 12 talks about the only person truly responsible for Hannah's death is Hannah herself. As someone left behind by my father's death by suicide, I faced the truth that no matter what anyone in my father's life did to support him, he did make this choice. There's no blame to place.
yeah, and I feel that's what she was doing. She was trying to place blame on all of these different people. Like one person who was always there for her, who was like the main character actually, who was always there for her, who was her friend and actually like loved her. He even had a tape. He was like the last tape or something, and it was because he didn't do anything. So you're still part of the cause.
That's kind of messed up.
Yeah,
That doesn't sound very good. As a suicide prevention advocate, the show doesn't talk about mental illness or depression, and it doesn't name those words by presenting suicide as the only option. So that ties into what you just said like earlier, like when we started about how it didn't really offer any other solutions to the problem.
yeah,
Kind of makes it sound very one-sided, as if that's the only solution,
hmm
which obviously is not. There's different ways of going to seek help. Call a hotline or have your friends help you out. I know it's very difficult, but it can be done. And don't say that it's never gonna. I wouldn't say that you don't know until you've tried.
Mhm.
And it's very difficult for one to experience depression and stuff like that. And it's not easy to seek help either because it's more of something that people tend to be kind of shameful of rather than something that they're proud of.
Mhm.
Which is something I wouldn't say it's a good thing, but it's also what kind of differentiates people from romanticizing depression and suicide. It's like there are people who are actually shameful of it, people who don't who are actually depressed and have a mental illness, rather than those people that are, oh, I'm going to act depressed so I can get friends. And there's a big difference between the two. But looking into it, it doesn't seem very good how they interpreted it. I mean, I could see what they're going for. I'm pretty sure the main intent was, yes, we need to bring this awareness. But according to what people are saying, it doesn't look very effective in the way they were trying to do it. So yeah, some areas, some communities have banned like the book and stuff like that
Yeah.
because it glamorized suicide.
This is actually a really good point. Because I'm reading another article right now.
Mhm.
It's like the executive director for suicide awareness, Voice of Education, Dan Reidenberg. When the series first came out, he was explaining how the media depiction of suicide has a huge effect on teens, and considering it's the second leading cause of death among the age group, the depiction of suicide in shows meant for young audiences should be handled with great care.
Mhm.
Because like he was saying, like there's a great concern. He said, "There's a great concern that I have that young people are going to identify that are going to over identify with Hannah in the series, and that we would actually we actually may see more suicides as a result of this television series." So let's see if it did increase. Um, okay, so this is like National Institute of Mental Health. It's like um, release of 13 reasons why associated with increase in young suicide rates. Um, There was a 28.9 increase in suicide rates among U.S. youth ages 10 to 17 in the month April 2017, following the show's release.
And then you see such a great like contrast between this and A Silent Voice. It's crazy
Yeah.
because like you know what happens in the film. However, it's not recognized by like when people think of it. People know what happens in the film, but people don't think of it in the negative way
Hmm.
as they do with 13 Reasons Why. Because I searched up 13 Reasons Why and I get a ton of like negative comments about it. Like
Yeah.
people like and professionals talking about like how bad of a message it's bringing out. Meanwhile, I search up
Hmm.
A Silent Voice and everybody is like praising it for the good reasons, which is it gives me faith in it at least, but it also like assures, it also gives you assurance that there is a good way to portray it, you know.
Yeah.
And as we've kind of touched upon, it does portray it in a much more lighter and much more understanding way
Hmm.
because the situations are much more realistic and the thoughts that are being like represented in this film kind of you don't really expect Shoko to commit suicide. Like it kind
No,
of it doesn't really you kind of when you first watch it, you don't expect it
yeah, that's more so of like an underlying thing, and then like after you see,
because
like you realize why.
everything seems so good for her. Everything like you don't really think about her thoughts, you know. Or no, her thoughts are more like everything is going good for her because it appears that, you know, she has friends and, you know, things are looking light
I
for
mean,
her, but
this is
it
kind of like the same reason as like of course not to the same extent, but like it's kind of a similar reason as to like Ishida's motivation. It was like feeling that he was like a burden, kind of.
yeah,
Yeah, that feeling of being a burden.
because she had a disability. It made much more sense. Not because she had a disability, but because she felt like she was just dead weight. She was just someone that was causing trouble to people.
Yeah,
And it was shown in the film when she was a kid. Um, you know, like the scenes of her, what's it called? You know, when she was trying to communicate with the class, she had to bring out a notebook all the time. Or when they had to do choir practice, she was
or
off
even just like
timing and off key.
even just like when she got the news that like she couldn't hear in one ear anymore, like her reaction to that.
A lot of it was more understanding. You could see where they're coming from. You could see like those situations much more realistic, and that she's
Hmm.
ashamed of herself. You know that people just she thinks that people don't like her or people are just having trouble being around her, and
Mm.
it's much more realistic. Rather than blaming it on other people, she blames it on herself. Which I mean, it sounds bad, but I'm trying to
But
say
I
it in
mean,
the
that's the
way.
reality of a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
of
just
things.
trying to say like this is what happens. In contrast to 13 Reasons Why, apparently it just says that they're just blaming it on other people, which doesn't seem very like why would you commit suicide when you want to do when you're blaming it on other people? If you blame it on other people, wouldn't you want to do something against them?
Yeah,
That would
and
seem
like they kind of portray it in a way where it's like suicide is a meticulous process that you have to prepare for.
I mean, yeah, it is.
Plan out.
It is, but it seems much more like
But like not to that extent though.
they
Where
made it seem
like
like it was such a you make it sound like it's a cool thing, you know, like
it was used in a revenge plot kind of way.
yeah, like that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like it portrays like mental health very well either or at all,
Hmm.
which isn't it's not very good to but on the contrary, at least, you know, this just, you know, again, that's why I said development. Development is the key. It's just understanding the characters, understanding their situation, understanding what they're in, and realizing that it's realistic. And that kind of ties into the whole thing that gives people this like positive outlook to it. Because I mean, if you look on Netflix, not on Netflix, but if you look on like Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, or even my anime list, it has like 9 out of 10 stars. People don't downvote it because of the themes of suicide and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In fact, it's like again, like I said, it's more of a second thought when thinking of the film. People tend to think of the positive outcomes that came with the film. Everybody reunited, everybody became friends, and the end. It was very like rewarding that everybody lived happily ever after.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like it could even go further than that. It can show like, you know, what can happen in that time that like you're gone, you know? And it can show it kind of shows the possibilities of what could change if you do choose to stay.
Everybody's much happy. Could you imagine if her plans went through?
Mhm.
It would be very sad. The movie wouldn't end in the way people would want it. So think about that. I mean, it's just it's just the outcome that's really the most important thing, and
Mhm.
realizing what could happen. And people, again, like I said, don't realize what happens. People don't see the outcome. People don't people don't know what happens. Again, like I said, communities or families or friends, they all find out about what happens and they grieve and they don't think of things the same way because a suicide is known to be even more emotionally damaging than a natural death.
Mhm.
Now, I don't have the article for that, but it is said that what's it called? It is much more emotionally like damaging to others than the natural causes for death. And that's saying a lot, and that's something
Yeah.
that people don't think about often. So yeah, judging from what we've talked about, what do you think would be a good way of interpreting it?
Of interpreting like how suicide should be portrayed.
Yeah, or how do you say
Um,
the message? Suicide prevention.
like we talked about it. It's just hard to kind of formulate it. um,
It's okay.
Let me see.
Because if I were to like, I've kind of just said it like multiple times already, but like again, if I were to make a film about something like that, it's just understanding like one, it's doing your research, knowing like
Yeah.
what it's like,
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
it's like for people, not only for the person itself, but what it's like for other people. You
Yeah.
know,
So it's like um probably I don't know if you want to write this down or if you want me to write this down, but it's like first it's like giving an understanding of what the person's going through, like seeing things through their eyes.
hmm
Um Also like
to it's having a reason in the first place.
um I don't
Like,
know about um
is it reasonable? Is it reasonable? Like, is the
yeah,
development towards the person trying to commit suicide like reasonable at all?
yeah. And probably the other thing is like don't change the message of it. Like don't turn it into something that it's not.
Yeah, try to be as realistic as possible.
Yeah, like don't turn it into a revenge plot. Don't turn it into like this meticulous thing where you have to get back at everyone who hurt you because a lot of the times like as you mentioned earlier it's not like like people who do commit suicide, they're not going around blaming other people and thinking you caused this. Because if anything, suicide wouldn't make sense for them to do.
Yeah,
And
they would be more.
if that's their mindset.
That wouldn't seem right.
Yeah.
Because if you blame it on
Um
someone else, wouldn't you like
yeah.
to do take action against them?
Yeah. I would also probably say like being mindful with what you show and being mindful for the audience that what you're trying to create is gonna try and appeal to.
Yeah, having knowing the audience that I think knowing the audience is very key. Like knowing who are you trying to show this to? Is this meant for younger is this meant for like younger children who are just growing up
Or
and
even just like teens, you know?
or teenagers,
Because
which is very impacted
yeah, and they're heavily influenced by what's around them.
because it's
Because the thing with teens is that a lot of the times they tend to overanalyze things or try to find connections to relate to things.
Mhm.
which is just what a lot of people ended up doing with this show. They ended up over identifying with the main character who committed suicide and maybe and thought like, well, I guess this is that's the way to go.
So knowing the proper audience is also
Yeah.
a step in.
Knowing the proper audience and taking the precaution.
Yeah. And then having a lesson. Having a lesson.
Having a
Having
lesson and also showcasing suicide prevention, like
like there needs to
people
be
reaching out.
yeah, there needs to be some sort of showing of support. There needs to be some sort of, again, yes, again, like I said, a lesson. There needs to be someone like there needs to be how would I say this? There needs to be a reason why you shouldn't do this.
Yeah. And I mean it can't be in the way that they did it in 13 Reasons Why, where the main character was always there and supporting the girl and like being there for her and caring about her. And then she's like,
Only to be blamed.
yeah, only to be blamed and say that he was actually part of the cause because he didn't do anything.
So that's
But in
contradictory.
reality, what he was already doing was doing something, showing that he actually cared about someone and was like willing to be there for that person. Because the way that they show it, it was her who walked away from him, kind of. She's like, you should have made a move. You should have done something. But in reality, he already was. You know?
That doesn't sound like there is a I feel like that kind of contradicts again the point of the message.
Mhm.
That doesn't work very effectively in portraying the message. So when making these kind of like media, when creating these type of films or TV shows, there should be a lot more meticulous planning. There needs to be a lot more research done. Because I
Yeah.
feel like because it's Hollywood, a lot of them tend to not do their research, or a lot of them tend to base it off stereotypes instead of consulting experts in the field,
Mhm.
which isn't good. Because if you got a lot of professionals talking about this show, a lot of professionals saying why this is inaccurate or why this shouldn't be shown to people, it really just shows that these people that are making the show really didn't do the research.
Mhm.
So that shows a lot, which isn't good. But yeah, seeing this good and bad representation really just gives us a way to learn, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because again, as the society is changing, the society is becoming more reliant on ourselves, and right now we're in a situation that requires us to stay at home, and the numbers of people becoming depressed and committing suicide have grown a lot because of self-isolation and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And seeing that this is becoming like a trend, I guess, in the film industry or in the TV show industry kind of shows that this whole thing of people becoming depressed, this trend isn't gonna end soon,
Yeah.
which is kind of sad. But it's just recognizing these things and understanding the do's and don'ts, understanding the truth and what's not true is essential. When was the last time that you saw the show again? Like,
Well, season 1 would be when it came out, because that's the main one that like dealt with suicide.
hmm,
Because the other seasons they kind of appeal to different topics. It's like season 2 was like um the big thing there was like the birth of a school shooter. Season
uh,
3 was
oh, okay, I see.
yeah, season 3 was like It was like murder mystery,
Hmm.
and then season 4 was like mental health, and like all of them did a bad job.
Wow. Well, yeah, okay. Is there anything else that we should talk about? Anything that we skipped over? Anything that
um, Not in particular, I don't think. I feel like we covered a lot of good ground here. And I think like the articles that we found and whatever, I feel like it serves as a good basis of like what should and what shouldn't.
okay.
I can. Do you want me to send you the other two that I was like looking at?
Yeah, yeah,
Just
go
so.
ahead so I can at least credit those, I guess.
Yeah, the second one is just like criticism, like more criticisms and stuff. And then the third one is like suicide rates and like what happened afterward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for thanks for being here. It was a
Yeah.
very good discussion.
Yeah. And like these are like the kind of things that I enjoy, like kind of talking about shows or whatever. Even though I don't really watch many
I
shows
don't
right now,
either,
it's like
and
um
I haven't seen this one for sure specifically.
yeah, I just enjoy like the analyzation of like the little things.
Hmm.
Like yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting.
That's okay. That's good because at least people are understanding like the truth behind the message because a lot of people are
Yeah.
giving it criticism,
Yeah.
which shows that people do understand the truth, which is good. And I like this message to be spread.
Hmm.
This is something that you shouldn't like ignore.
Yeah. And I feel like this was a big topic that we've been meaning to talk about like
Yeah,
for our project, but we never got around to it. So I mean,
yeah,
it's like at least it's still getting done.
that's true.